there are some of you on the call who know us well and others who are much less aware of our work. But broadly, we're a charity that works to support organisations and individuals seeking social change. And a big part of our work is really trying to improve the environment that charities and social change organisations operate in. So as you might imagine, funders are a very significant part of that environment. And we do a lot of work with independent trusts and foundations, as well as with statutory funders, to help them develop their practice. We've been working probably for the last 10 years at least in really focusing on that. So supporting funder practice to shift and to develop and to adapt to meet the needs of organisations on the ground, and to try and reshape grant relationships around the principle of mutuality and around a more kind of shared endeavour between funded and funding organisations. So that work has included looking at core funding or at funding plus processes, at relational and flexible funding, at better reporting. So we've been plugging away for a while on some of the things that are kind of the nitty-gritty issues in funding practices. But last March, as you all know, COVID-19 came along and it changed a lot of things in our lives overnight. One of those things was also funding practices. So we saw within the space of 24 hours, a huge shift in funding practices, huge adaptations. Suddenly there were grants being made within 24 to 48 hours. There were grants being given with no reporting requirements or minimal reporting requirements. Organisations were given the freedom to adapt and to use the funding in the way they thought best was needed to support their communities. So we saw that those things could happen. We saw that they could be done. We saw it was possible, which is really exciting and presents an excellent opportunity. And that's what we're trying to do with the call to action. So really, the things that we saw in emergency were the things that are on the screen today, actually a real focus on trust, on speed, on light touch processes. So we're working really to try and take the best of that crisis. So the things that we want to hold on to into the future. And that's a future that I think we all accept at the moment will have further uncertainty and upheaval. So it feels the responsible thing to do to try and hold on to some of the best of that crisis and take it into the future. So the call to action is a collaboration between IVAR, London Funders, and 8 charities and 10 trusts and foundations. The logos of the group are on the screen there. That's the founding group. And together we've designed 8 commitments that are characterised by being more trusting, more open, and more respectful in grant-making processes. So these are all things, here are the commitments, that will make life easier and better support the charities that you fund, the organisations that, as a funder, you need to be able to achieve your mission. And they'll also, we think, start to enable some thinking and engagement with bigger, deeper issues around things like risk, around reach and access, and around diversity. So I'm just going to share a little bit about these commitments and what they might look like. I'll just take you through each of them. So firstly, we have don't waste time. So funders within our community already are committed to not wasting any grantees' time if possible. So thinking about for applicants, very clear information and opportunities to discuss application processes, providing really clear guidance on your priorities, trying to think about as inclusive and as accessible processes as possible. Commitment 2, ask relevant questions. So really only collecting the information that you need to make your funding decisions, and wherever possible, trying to strip that back. So a lot of the funders in the community of practice already are looking at staged application processes, at more simple processes, putting in support during the process, and also using information that's already available. So for example, accounts from the Charity Commission, rather than asking organisations to provide them every time. The third commitment is accept risk. So committing to accepting your share of risk as a funder and being realistic about how much assurance you can reasonably expect from applicants on that. Giving unrestricted or core funding is part of accepting risk and allowing organisations to be trusted to do what they think is needed in terms of serving their communities. The fourth commitment, act with urgency. So that's a commitment to work at the pace that suits your grantees and applicants. It includes being transparent about timescales, but also being proportionate about them, trying to understand what's going to work best in terms of pacing for people who are applying as much as for yourself as a funder. Commitment number 5, be open. Really, that's about being open about decisions. So committing to giving detailed feedback where possible, or sharing information and analysis from your success rates and the kinds of things that you, reasons that you turn down applications, and also holding reviews and conversations with grantees about these things. Commitment number 6, enable flexibility. We've talked a little bit about this already, but really committing to try and fund in a way that allows organisations to adapt and change them, adapt to the changing needs of their communities, which, you know, I think we've all seen has been a massively significant this year, having that flexibility. So it includes unrestricted funding, but it is also about being flexible, allowing organisations to pick up the phone, have a chat, tell you what's changed, and then adapt their work accordingly. Commitment number 7 is communicate with purpose. So that's about being clear about your relationship with grantees, trying to start that off on the right foot, being clear about it, being purposeful about it, framing it with the concept of mutuality and partnership. Organisations in the community already have talked about leaving organisations better than when they started working with them, and providing spaces for open and honest conversations with their applicants and grantees. And then finally, be proportionate. So using really light touch reporting wherever possible. So light touch and minimal reporting, but being proportional in what you do use and clear about the process, but also how information is going to be used. So really making sure if you're collecting it, you're using it in some way. So those are the 8 commitments. So far, we have more than 50 funders now, part of our group of flexible funders. So that's the group there on the screen right now. We've got an amazing range of funders in our community so far. In that mix, you'll see community foundations, place-based foundations, national funders, funders run by single volunteer administrators, through to funders with 20, 30 strong staff teams, issue-specific funders and generalist funders. There are family foundations in there, as well as corporate foundations. So it's a huge range. It's really exciting to see that range, and I hope that the funders on the call today can see something of themselves in that group if you're thinking of joining it. But all of us, all 50 plus, are united by a shared belief in trying to shift funding practices and flipping the onus really onto funders, so that you take the onus for developing your practices and processes to better support the organisations that you fund. So I'll just share, there's a quote here from one of our members. This is the Alan Lane Foundation, just about what's kind of exciting them about joining. So they've signed up as a flexible funder. You can sign up on our website. We'll share the links in the chat. And joining means you're joining a community of practice. So 50 plus funders, all with that shared commitment. And as part of that, you join the community of practice, which will be meeting from the end of April onwards in a more participatory and engaging format than this, which is an information session. It will be much more interactive, but that will be a kind of peer support group where you're really focusing on how to put the commitments into practice together. So it's a really exciting part of it.